This is the Daily Well, your easy road to health, the what, why, and how that you can draw upon regularly for your overall well-being. Hello, welcome to the first episode of the Daily Well, Easy Road to Your Health. My name is Rita Patel, and I am a health coach and well-being strategist. So what does that mean? It means that I envision possibilities, provide support, and figure out the how. And the how is how to fit it into your life, how to make it work for you no matter who you are, where you are, and when it is. So before we get to the how, which is the last segment of the show where I show you how to make a dish in a really easy, simple, tasty, and cheap way, we're going to talk about the what and the why. And that is important because we need to know our environment, our body, what I call our operating system. And once we know that, we become more aware so we can make the best choices for our overall well-being, to live not necessarily perfect, because nothing's perfect, but to have, to optimize, to choose the best things in whatever situation we're in. So usually when we think of health, we think of the physical body. And I'm using this very simple visual to just make a point. So, but the thing is, this isn't really all of our health. Our health is more than this. It's more than the physical body. It's all this other stuff. And in here, it's in here right now to just point out that we usually think of it as something separate, not something that interacts or is inside of our body. So I'm going to take a few things out of here to, and that's what the focus of this little segment is going to be for today. So we usually think of our brain and mental health as separate from health, our physical health, when in actuality, it's all part of one body. So it belongs in here, and what happens inside the brain affects what happens, the rest of our body. And today we're going to talk about food on a very basic level and how it affects your whole body. So we, you shake it up, and the idea is everything gets mixed in here and everything affects everything else. So I'm going to put this down. So food, what is food? Food is anything from a Hot Pocket to an apple. And a Hot Pocket is something that we created, and whereas an apple is something that comes from nature. And food for a lot of people is just fuel. It's kind of what you put in your mouth to get through the day. And other people, like me, have their life revolves around it. It's just something a lot more important. And we have a lot of emotion wrapped up around food. We think of it, some people think of it as fun. It could be fancy, it could be really easy. But at the end of the day, whatever we think about it and feel about it, it's important. And although it's not everything for our nourishment, why is it important? The why is, well, it provides us with nourishment. And what is nourishment? So it's different antioxidants, it's phytonutrients. Phytonutrients are all the things that come from plant foods, and plant foods are spices, herbs, vegetables, and then there's minerals, then there's vitamins, and then there's also the fuel part, which is fats. Fats are essential, and fats don't make you fat. And then there's, of course, protein, which is really essential, and the carbohydrates, which is our main source of fuel for the body. And so all these nutrients, what happens is if we don't get enough, then our body doesn't work properly, and we become off balance. So one of the things that happens is in our mind, the neurotransmitters don't get the nutrients that they need. So like the B vitamins, the omega-3s, and so they can't send the messages from one part of your brain to the other, and that messes up everything else in the rest of your body. And it causes anxiety in people, all the way to depression and ADD. Also, if you don't get the proper nutrients, you could have inflammation in your body, and that leads to all sorts of diseases, and it's responsible for a lot of chronic diseases right now that we see, like diabetes. So it's really important that we get the right balance of nutrients, and it's a lot to think about for when you have all this other stuff going on. So how do you do it? And the beauty of it is all we really need is our sight, our smell, and just to look at texture and taste and see how we feel. Because Mother Nature has done a wonderful job of wrapping it up in a lovely package where it just, the color means something, the smell means something, and the taste means something. So we just want to make sure there's variety, and and it tastes good. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with the cooking segment, which will show you how to do this in a tasty, easy way.
There's a crisis in America. More than half of us are overweight. The advice experts agree on is to eat more fruits and vegetables as part of a healthy diet and be physically active. Eating 5 to 9 servings of colorful fruits and vegetables and being active every day will help our kids stay healthy and fit. Eat smarter, be active, and get healthy, America. Because the figures don't lie.
Hi, so welcome back, and we talked about in the previous segment about food, how it nourishes our whole body, including the mind. But then how do we do all this? You know, how do we think about all those phytonutrients and antioxidants and do it in a way that doesn't cost a lot of money, that's easy, and that fits in with your life? So what I've decided is to show you a dish, what I call a vegetable stew. And it's not just a vegetable stew. It's really more of a framework, and you can do many different things from it, from making it soupy to a sauce. You can add meat to it, but it'll give you an idea of how to do something on a very low cost in an easy way that tastes good, because that's the most important part. So if you look over here, we have a few ingredients. We have some tomatoes, kidney beans, sweet potato, an onion, some garlic, celery, spinach, and in here is a little bit of brown rice. It doesn't look like a whole lot. This is anywhere depending on where you shop and what your, if there were any sales, and if you bought like sweet potato or regular potato, anywhere from like $3 to $5, and you'll see how it makes enough food for 4 to 5 people. I've got the pot going here. We're going to start with putting a little bit of oil in. I'm using safflower oil, and that is neutral oil. It's really good for cooking, for high heat. We're not going to do high heat today. It doesn't have a whole lot of flavor, and it's high in linoleic acid, so it's a really good fat in your body. So put that in here. So I put a little bit of oil. What I like to do is chop and cook at the same time, as opposed to getting everything ready. That reduces the time. So we'll start with the onion, and what I'm going to show you here is some knife and chopping skills. So you want to hold the knife, you want to grip it where your thumb is on one side of the blade and your index finger is on the other. And this protects your wrist, and you use more of your upper arm. So I'm trying to get the skin off right now. Sometimes it's not so easy. All right, normally after I do this, I wash it. We don't have a sink here, so I have a wet paper towel just to wipe off any outer stuff. All right, so I'll take this part off here. This is where the little strings are. And then you want to take your knife, and you want to make sure your fingers are in, nothing sticking out, and you cut it in half. Once you cut it in half, you have this part facing out, and you just use your knife and just slice into it on an angle. This way you'll get perfectly diced pieces in a very quick way. So okay, and this last bit you can just cut this way, and then that little nub you just throw in there. And then you take the onion, put it in the pan, and after the onion, I am going to add some garlic. And onion and garlic are very high in allicin. So we're going to take 2 pieces of garlic. Allicin is really great antiviral, antifungal. It helps prevent like colds and viruses, and they're really cheap. So, and what I'm doing here is, I'm going to turn this up a little bit. What I'm doing here is just creating a base that you can create for anything, whether you're making a sauce, any sort of soup. It's just a little bit of oil, some onion, a little bit of garlic. If you eat ginger, you can put that in. And I don't know if you saw, I held the knife wrong. It's from a bad habit. So you never want to put your finger up here like I just did. Okay. That's what happens when you learn the wrong way the first time. Okay, the other thing about using a knife is you don't want to go up and down like this. It's really bad for the blade. You want to rock back and forth. So I'm going to wait to put the garlic in, because the allicin that I just mentioned, it activates after you cut the garlic, and if you let it sit for a little while before it hits the heat, then the antioxidants, the phytonutrients actually, will be more effective in your body. So the other thing I'm going to add is celery to the base. You can peel it, the outer part. Sometimes it's a little tough, but because this is a stew, it's going to cook a little bit longer, so it's optional. So I'm going to peel this real quick to make it a little softer. And I'm putting everything in one spot, all the peels and the outer part of the onion, so it's just easier to clean up, and I don't have to run from the garbage to the stove. All right, move my garlic out of the way. So now celery, when I was growing up, it was more like of a diet food, and it's actually really, really high in a lot of different vitamins, minerals, nutrients. It has a lot of minerals that are like manganese, magnesium, which really support bone health. And it's really easy to get. So one thing I want to mention is I did wash the celery beforehand, so you want to make sure you do that with all your vegetables. Okay, so I'm just going to put the celery in. And now I'm going to put the garlic in also. All right. So this is generally my base. I'm going to stir it up a little bit to coat it with the oil. You can hear the sizzling, so it's starting to sweat. Now this creates a nice flavor base. You could stop here, or you could add more flavor with spices. A lot of people think spices are really expensive, but the thing is, a little bit goes a long way. You don't really need a lot, and if you start using them and you find the right combination for you, you'll see that it adds a lot of flavor, and you'll be using them all the time. So you don't need a whole lot, but you want to start with a few that you like. So what I have here is black pepper. So we're going to add a little bit of black pepper. And the reason why I like to add it at this point, you can add it towards the end, is just with the oils, it starts bringing out all the flavors. I'm going to add a little bit of chili powder. You could use red pepper flakes if you like, or leave it out if you do not like spicy food. One thing that chili powder or red pepper flakes, or even if you have like a jalapeno pepper, you could throw that in right now. What that does is it kind of rounds out the flavors. It marries all the flavors together. There are other things that do that, but chili is definitely one of them. Cumin, which is very popular in Mexican food and in Indian food. You can buy this easily in the grocery store. It has a really nice smoky flavor. which is really good right now at this time of year. It gives you a nice warming feeling. It's also really good to help digest the beans that we're going to put in our stew. Okay, and the last thing is this yellow powder. You may have heard about this. It is called turmeric or turmeric. Some people call it that. It is called the super spice. It is actually related to ginger, and it looks like this. And if you break it open, you can see the orange inside. It's a really nice bright color. And I put it in everything because it doesn't really have a whole lot of flavor, and it adds a lot of great like antiviral. It's an antifungal, it's an antibacterial. It helps prevent Alzheimer's, it's anti-plaque. It's really, really great. And especially when it's paired with black pepper, it's an anti-inflammatory, so it's really good for people who have joint pain. And you don't have to buy all these spices at once. You can buy them, you know, one a month, and so you don't necessarily have to make a big investment right away, but it does help to have kind of your base, like 5 or 6 that you really like, and you play with the combinations. So the next 2 things, I'm going to add some herbs. I'm going to add some oregano. Okay. And I'm going to add some basil. So basil and oregano, great antioxidants also. Really easy to find. If you don't have that, you can add Italian seasoning. So, all right. Now this is really the most complicated part. The chopping in the beginning and sauteing all of this. All right, so this is close. So the next thing we want to add is the sweet potato. So what I've done, just to make things go a little smoother, is I've chopped most of it up. But just to show you how you can dice it, I left a little bit to do. Okay. All right. So again with the knife, the thumb and the forefinger, and sometimes it's really hard with the sweet potato. It might roll around and it could get really dangerous. So you can slice off a piece at the end here, and then it becomes very stable. It's not going to rock back and forth. And then what I like to do is make little circles. So, okay. And then I go like this, and chop them into cubes. The smaller they are, the faster they cook. So just throw that in there. And I like to chop and go. So as I chop, I put things in the pot. So here we go. There we go. And sweet potato is a little tough, so you need to press down from the top, and it helps me keep the knife stable. So I'm going to mix this together. So, now in the recipe that's going to be online, I say about 1/2 cup of rice. Today I'm using brown rice. It cooks up to a little bit more than regular white rice. And the sweet potato was a little bit larger than what I normally would have used, so I'm using a little bit of rice, a little bit less of the rice. That really doesn't matter. So for example, if you don't have rice, you don't have to use it. You could use something else. It's more on what you have. And how much of it do you want? So let's say you have a lot more people coming over today, so you can add a whole cup of rice. You just need to add more liquid. That's really it. And you want to add maybe a little bit more seasoning, and you can taste as you go along. So, all right, so here is my 1/4 cup of rice. It's very little. It's only a 1/4 cup, but it'll be almost a cup by the time it's cooked. So put that in there. I like to coat the rice and toast it a little bit. It brings out a little bit of flavor. So there we go. Okay, and the last two things are, we're going to do the beans and the tomato sauce. So I've already opened up the beans, and what I did was I rinsed them first. We're using kidney beans, and kidney beans are actually really high in omega-3s. So aside from having phytonutrients and antioxidants and fiber, and they're also a great source of protein. Let's put that in there. And already opened a can of tomato sauce, so put that in there. So. Now if you have tomato sauce from, you know, leftover pasta that you had, you can use that. If it's tomato season, you can use fresh tomatoes. It's not tomato season right now, so I prefer to use tomato sauce. Okay. So I turned up the heat a little bit to get a little bit more of have it come to a slight boil before I turn it down to let the potatoes and the rice cook. So you can add more tomato sauce, but I'm going to add a little bit of water so there's enough liquid here for everything to cook. Okay. And the more liquid you add, the more of a soup it'll be. So I'm going to hold off on the salt, and I am going to cover it now so it could come up to a boil. All right. And that's it. That's really all you need to do. You can change out all different things. You don't have to use the sweet potato. You could use regular potato, you could use turnips, rutabaga, you could use cauliflower. You want something a little bit more with substance. If you don't like tomatoes, you can leave that out. I like it for the tang. And for the tomatoes, I'll have lycopene. It's another phytonutrient. We talked about phytonutrients and antioxidants in the earlier segment, and we don't know every single phytochemical in all these foods. For example, in tomatoes, there's 10,000 of them, but we're still learning what they are. So we do know that they're good for us, and they're not that expensive. And you can kind of get them everywhere. So you can leave out the tomato and you can just use broth. You can use water. To give it that little bit of tang, you may want to add a little bit of lemon. You can leave out the beans, or you can use a mixture of beans. You could use lentils, or you could use peas. The whole idea here is that you would have this stuff on hand already. So you'd have your basic pantry items. You'd have them and you'd replenish them every so often when you go grocery shopping on a regular basis. So things like this don't go bad. So if you have canned beans, you have canned tomatoes, if you have frozen foods, we'll be adding frozen spinach later. Sweet potatoes, they last a really long time. You could use another type of squash if you want also. Spices have a pretty long shelf life. I mean, you can also, if you're not going to use them that often, you can keep them in the freezer. And onions last a while. A tip that I learned, and I figured it out from how they sell garlic. And they come in these, like, it looks like almost like pantyhose. It makes them last longer. They stay fresher longer. So if you don't have this, you can actually use like hosiery of your own, or just go buy some. And you can do this with the onions too, and it keeps them fresher longer. And so that's that. And let's see. So one of the questions I always get is, well, what do I do with the leftover stuff? How do I cook and not let the other stuff go to waste? How do I reuse it? So one of my best friends is a ice cube tray. So what I like to do is, let's say I didn't use a whole onion, I bought a really big onion, I can chop up the onion and freeze it, and it's a lot easier if you freeze things in portions. So that's why I use the ice cube tray. It's not really, It won't be so firm when you take it out of the freezer, but if you're cooking it in something like this, it doesn't really matter. It's going to be a stew or a soup. And you can do the same thing with celery. Celery has a really high water content, so it'll definitely be mushy, but it's a way to for it to last longer without it going bad, and you have it on hand when you need it. The other thing with celery is you can, while you're waiting for your dish to cook and you're cleaning up, is you can take the celery and chop it in, wash it, chop it up into bite-sized pieces, and you can use it as a snack. You can dip it in peanut butter, and it gives you that nice crunch that people are always looking for. So we had onion, we had garlic. Garlic, I wouldn't really freeze it. I guess you could, but I don't think it'll last so well. I think it's better to just store it in those things and keep it in the refrigerator. And there was celery, and then if you do have leftover, if you had a larger, if it was cheaper, it was on sale, if you had larger, like tomato sauce, you can do the ice cube tray thing. I think that works great. So the next time you make something like this, you throw in a few cubes of this and a few cubes of that. And the same thing with the beans, and the beans are kind of like the onions and the celery. They will go mushy, but if you're putting it in something like this, it's not really going to matter. Or it'd be great as a bean dip, so you could always puree it and freeze it, or puree it and use it to have a little dip later on in the week or the next day. So we're going to take a break right now, and we'll be right back, and we'll check on the food when we come back.
Red, green, orange, yellow, and white. Blue, purple, yeah, I'm gonna feel alright. Here comes the rainbow, color my day. I'm seeing light in a brand new way. It's the color of light, the color of light.
When it comes to staying healthy and fit, eating more colorful fruits and vegetables every day really does matter.
Welcome back, and while we were on break, what I did was I added, I don't know if you can see, I added the spinach and a little bit of salt. It's almost done. I had to add a little bit of water just to get the rice finished. So while this is finishing up, I am going to show you how much it makes. So it basically makes about 9 cups of food, and it's portioned out into 3 bowls. So you can eat this as a meal. You can eat it as a side. It could be lunch or dinner, depending on how much you eat. You can eat this over a salad. You can also add, you can add ground meat to it, some egg. You can do a lot of different things with this. If you want to make it into a sauce, I would leave out the rice, or you could keep it in there and just be thicker, and you just want to blend it, maybe thin it out. And one of the things, if you don't want to add a lot of salt, but you want to taste all the different flavors, you can add some lemon or lime, and all you do is at the end, you just kind of squeeze it on top. So, and that's it. It's that easy. $5. This was $5. If I had shopped on sale, it would have been a little bit over $3. And you can use any different spices. You don't have to use the ones I use, but it's all about experimenting. This is the framework, and it'll be online. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Orion Township Community Programs invites area families to the 4th Annual Growing Green Expo on Wednesday, March 20th from 1 to 7 p.m. Vendors will be stationed throughout the Orion Center offering information on green products, career opportunities, energy efficiency, greening your home, organic gardens, and parks and trails. Parking and admission is free to the public. That's the Growing Green Expo at the Orion Center, Wednesday, March 20th from 1 to 7 p.m. For more information, call 248-391-0304 extension 305 or visit oriontownship.org.
So thanks for watching. I hope you learned something new, and I hope you tune back in to learn more stuff. If you have any questions or comments, please email me at Rita G. Patel, RITAGPATEL @gmail.com. Maybe I'll be able to answer some of your questions on air next time. Thanks, and have a great day.